Hey, it's Nic Harcourt here, and I've got Nate, Mike, and Conor, who collectively are Bright Eyes. And, well, where are you, first of all? You're in three different places, obviously. I'm in the Valley in California. Where are you guys?
This is Connor, and I am in Omaha, and I'm actually right down the hill from Michael here.
From me,
Right.
that implies I'm also in Omaha. And
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Our backyards connect, and our studios in our backyards. So
I should just come down there when we do these. It's more fun. We're in the bubble, like
acreage, man. You got that acreage separating you, but obviously that's home for a long time. And where are you at, Nate?
Nick, I'm across town from you and over here in Highland Park in Los Angeles.
Oh, you are? Right. Yeah. Wow. Well, through the miracles of Chinese technology, here we are. How have you been? I mean, if I can just talk to you each individually before we get into the album, I mean, how have you been dealing with the longest 5 months in living memory? I mean, maybe Mike, you could start.
Oh man, I'm doing okay. I can't complain. We have a pretty good life. I've been, I got a garden. Me and Nate are working on a project together for a film score or TV series, and Nate can tell you about that. I don't know. It's ups and downs. Some days are a little dark, but I also have my kids here too, which brings a little bit of, lightness to it and makes me appreciate the things around me more. Although now that I have to be partly their teacher, I'm kind of like, don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I also think I'm their parent, so yeah, it's part of my thing. But
so your dad,
one day at a time kind of vibe. Honestly, like I have work and then also things like my kids and garden that keep me kind of grounded.
So your dad and principal.
Yeah, and if you knew me as either one, you'd be
be shocked.
That's controversial. The Mogis school here is they get away with some pretty weird stuff.
Yeah. Hey, we're not on the radio. You can speak normally.
All right,
Connor, how you been? What have you been up to? I mean, obviously working on some projects, but anything interesting that you would never have imagined finding yourself doing in the last 5 months?
I mean, honestly, like, I feel like there's like kind of two camps of people, like the people that are being like very productive and like, whatever, self-care and taking the time to like evaluate their life. And then there are people that are just, broken down and with no motivation. And that's more me. So I spent the first 5 months of quarantine in Los Angeles, actually, because I have a house there as well. So it was just like, me and my girlfriend in our house with doing nothing, like just, kind of not leaving. And then in July, I came back to Omaha, and I was kind of shocked at the difference, because out here it's like, there's people like not wearing masks. There's people like you drive by the bars. There's people like hanging out.
It's like it doesn't exist to them.
It's like it doesn't exist out here. It's very strange. It's like a parallel universe,
Yeah. I can't imagine how different that would be. I haven't been into the middle of the country for a while, but I have driven across America a couple of times in the last 20 years. And I'm not surprised that you're telling me how different it is from LA, for example. How do you respond to that? I mean, are you just sort of like in your own bubble, or are you just sort of staying put?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to lead by example. Like, we don't leave the house, like, or the compound situation. I mean, I've been to like the pharmacy. I've been, I actually haven't even gone to the grocery store. I went and saw my parents like in their backyard. Sometimes we'll have people in the backyard, but we're trying to, I don't know. I'm trying to live as if it's still the same situation, but people out here, it's wild. People are like hugging each other and all this stuff that like was not happening in LA. It's like
at the grocery store, they're like,
yeah, they're like hugging the cashier. No, but no, it's a little wild. It's just, I don't know. It's just a different world, which kind of, is terrifying, because it's probably like that in every state. It's probably like a little different everywhere you go. And so if there's no like national strategy, I don't see how you beat this thing,
Yeah. We should probably stay away from the politics of it. But yeah, it's it's a tough time because, as you said, there's no real national strategy. So how's it going to get better until that sort of gets, sorted out? But so Nate, you're here in LA. Obviously, you're in the LA bubble. What have you been up to? Have you do you share your life with somebody? If you don't mind me, being a little personal, do you have somebody that you have to hang out with during the days?
I do. I don't mind you getting a little personal. Yes, my partner and I, Becky Stark, she and I have a wonderful 4-year-old daughter, and that keeps us busy. Having that, raising a 4-year-old in this situation is no joke, and it's one day at a time. I mean, it can be tough, but it's amazing too. But as Mike mentioned, we're also he and I are scoring a TV show, an adaptation of the Stephen King book, The Stand.
Ooh, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, so we're scoring a show about a pandemic.
During a pandemic.
So, I have like a little studio I basically create a little studio in my house so that I can, be kind of in and out of the family vibes as much as possible. And, working, it's incredibly, it's a, real intense workload. So, it's keeping us busy. I've 95 dirty dishes in the kitchen sink. It's hectic. It's crazy. It's totally insane.
Sounds like a song title.
Yeah, and then our record is coming out, so there's lots of people to talk to about that. That's very exciting. So if you add all that together, it's a lot. But
you're not bored.
We're not bored, but like Mike said, we're fortunate to have stuff to work on and to keep us busy, and we're trying to look on the bright side.
I think I'm fortunate that I live with my partner as well. I can't imagine where my head would be at if I had been doing this on my own for 5 months. I mean, I'm so grateful, and gratitude goes a long way. I think that's my experience. So it's good to know that you guys are in good shape and busy and working, obviously, and it's a cliche, but so you got the band back together, right? It's been 9 years in between albums?
Yep.
You've all been busy on other projects, obviously, and I know that we were talking before we started recording that you've all been into our station in Northridge for different projects. Why now for Bright Eyes to make new music? Although I know you made it last year, I think, right? But how did it come about getting back together to make more music as Bright Eyes?
Well, I think that it was kind of two reasons. There's one, I think it was a little bit of a practical reason, which was all of our schedules were kind of winding down in different ways. Like Mike had some time coming up, and this all started December of 2017 is when we decided to make the record, and we spent 2 years making it. But Nate had been touring with the Red Hot Chili Peppers for several years, and I was doing the Better Oblivion stuff, and Mike was producing records, but it seemed like there was a window of time. And then I also think I think we'd all maybe been through changes and a lot of different stuff in our lives, and the idea of making a record with the people we felt the most comfortable with, that we because it's great to collaborate and it's great to have new experiences, but because we've made so many records together and we've toured the world together so many times, when we make a record, it's it feels like home. It feels, we don't have to explain things to each other. It's just a lot can go unsaid, which is sometimes can be a detriment. I get the idea of you work with some new producer and they bring up some fresh ideas, but with us it's we kind of know what we're all thinking to some degree, and but I love what we make together, and it'd been so long that it just felt like the right time. I don't know, is that fair to say, boys?
Yeah,
for sure. I think that's a pretty good summary. I mean, I think a lot of the things that we had been doing separately were, you know, also kind of, we were able to kind of take some new perspectives from that stuff and apply them to this record in a way that made it sort of like a really exciting idea. Like one of the things also that we had been doing that we were talking about a little bit earlier was, you know, Mike and I had scored a few films, including the one that we had mentioned, Fault in Our Stars, and I had scored a couple on my own after that. And, you know, I think that sort of led to kind of like a new, or I don't know, just some sort of heightened sense of communication, especially between the two of us, as far as like being in the studio together. And it was, I don't know, I think it, and then we also worked with Conor on his solo records. And I think all of those things, I don't know, it just led to this feeling of a new sense of communication and excitement about being in the studio and making a new record after that period of not making a Bright Eyes record, but working on stuff together.
Right, right. And Mike, I know obviously you've worked on a ton of records over the years, produced a lot of people. What does that bring back? What do you bring back from those experiences to making a new Bright Eyes record after 9 years?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like anything in life. Like you kind of learn. I mean, you learn from every experience you have. And in the studio and working on creating an album or a song, yeah, I definitely feel like I've grown as a musician and a producer, an engineer, even as far as mixing and stuff goes. Because I guess I absorb what, you know, other people like. I guess the kind of creative process for every artist is a little bit different. And since I am fortunate enough to get to experience how other people create, I kind of absorb that into my, I don't know, process. And then when we get back together, I guess this isn't going to totally make sense. Going back to what Conor was saying, like, we've been making records together for a long time, and we can kind of fall into similar roles as we used to in the past. This record was different though, because I think for each one of us, all of our roles expanded a little bit to kind of include newer things. And, you know, this is getting off topic a tiny bit, but that is also something that Nate was talking about too. Like this process, we all kind of wrote together, you know. Nate or I would submit like some just chord changes and a beat to Conor, and he would sift through them. And just because we wanted to make something a little different. And, you know, our experiences in, you know, I feel like this record has a heightened sense of musicality because of just that, you know, and our experiences in, I wouldn't call it downtime, but the time in between albums, at least for me, it kind of gave me more of a broadened perspective on what we could do as a band, or how to approach making an album. But somebody else can pick it up from there.
Well, maybe I could take, no, it's great because it gives me an insight into your process. And I think that, you know, when you bring three people together, obviously you've got three different perspectives, and everybody brings their own piece of who they are to the, you know, the final product, I guess. And as a producer and as an engineer, you bring that. And then as musicians, you bring your musicianship. And then Conor, you bring the lyrics. So let me ask you a little bit about that. How these songs, how did they come about? I mean, have they been kicking around a while? Were they all written for this record? Can you maybe take us through the process of sorting through the songs and the lyrics, at least for this?
For sure, yeah. I mean, you know, like they were saying, in the past, a lot of times, or I would say not in every case, but I would say, you know, maybe 90% of the past Bright Eyes songs, I would come with the song finished more or less. I'd show it to these guys. They would obviously put all their magic with arrangements and production. We'd do all that together and we'd end up with a record. But, you know, when I write a song, it's like, I have very, you know, and I'm not saying this like not fishing for a compliment here, Nick. But I, I have very basic musicality. I'm basically like a folk singer. Like my songs are like cowboy chords. It's like folk songs. And then these guys do their best to elaborate on them. But for this record, what was different was, like they were saying, to start with like pieces of music that they would give to me, and then, I would sit with them. I would, just live with them for a while and try to come up with vocal melodies and lyrics that I felt represent or like would come out of me, but also had to reflect, some of these more interesting, dare I say, like more sophisticated chords and harmonic ideas that I wouldn't have come up with on my own. But it was a fun challenge to get to, and we also had no deadline. So, I would say for every, 4 or 5 ideas, like only one of them like really connected with me that I ended up writing lyrics to, but they would give me a lot of things. And then there's some songs that were more traditional. Like I can think of like Dance and Sing and like Mariana Trench that like I wrote in a more, like I just kind of wrote them like the way I would normally write a song. But then even with those, I would pass them over to Nate. So like for Dance and Sing, it's like if you heard the original demo, it would kind of sound like a lot of my other songs. But I gave it to Nate, and he made some like interesting like chord substitutions. So, I'm going to say this wrong because I don't know anything about this kind of stuff. But, instead of playing like a D chord, it'd be like a D flat 9, whatever, and so all of a sudden what sounded like a Woody Guthrie song, all of a sudden kind of sounded more like a Louis Armstrong song, and I appreciated that level of like musicality that these guys can add to it that obviously I couldn't get to on my own. So I think that's the, power or, whatever, the value of all 3 people working together.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, I mean, to like, as far as what Conor was talking about, like, I would come in with like, I'd make like 10 ideas. I'd record like 10 ideas, just, piano or Wurlitzer or a synthesizer to a beat. I'd show it to Conor, and, we'd whittle it down to 2, and we'd make a song. We start building a song together from that. And in that sense, kind of going back to what Mike was saying, we were all kind of, and Mike would do the same thing. We would all sort of have our hands in kind of all of the areas of this process from start to finish.
And not in a creepy way.
Not in a creepy way, but in a non-creepy way, in a musical way. But in that sense, it really felt like this was really a result of all 3 of us kind of, all of our, it's just kind of like a soup of all of our stuff from start, because we were really like the sort of starting and stopping points of like roles that exist in like that are like easy to explain in other situations are kind of like harder to explain and like a little bit more mysterious in some of this process. So that's why it maybe felt like this was more of a group effort and more of a sort of result of all of our sort of musical DNA in this sort of this soup,
well,
our stuff. And
also, the first time we ever mentioned soup, I think, in a Bright Eye song is on this record, right?
Yeah. Chopping this, yeah.
True.
Everybody's kind of role sort of expanded.
We got some first. We got our first mention of soup, although I did mention a casserole once.
Yeah.
Which
so
there's that. Our first slap bass and our first bagpipes. So
yeah.
Our first finger tap guitar solo.
First finger tap. So there's a lot of firsts.
And it's also harmonic.
I think there's others first, but I'm gonna.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you about it.
I mean, there's a lot of firsts, but
So I'm always impressed when any band decides to go with bagpipes. Tell us about that and the choice to use that. I mean, how did it come about, and how did you record bagpipes?
Well, that's, we wrote that song, and to me it sounds like a funeral dirge basically, and I associate that with the sound of bagpipes. And there was this sort of instrumental break that was built into the song that we weren't really, we knew we wanted an instrumental break, but we weren't sure quite what we were going to do with it yet.
Yeah.
And then it just occurred to me, I was like, bagpipes would be amazing. It would fit perfect. Obviously, we didn't really know anyone that played bagpipes, so we literally like Googled it.
Google search.
Yeah, we did Google search in Omaha, and we found these guys called Pipes and Drums.
It's called Omaha Pipes and Drums.
Omaha Pipes and Drums, and these really nice gentlemen.
They're a three-piece.
These older guys. I think they mostly do funerals and parades and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It became kind of apparent once they came into the studio that they maybe had never been in a studio before.
Right.
Then they didn't quite understand that the music was pre-recorded and they had to wear the headphones.
Got it.
They kept on asking where the band was.
They were like, "Where's the band?" We're like,
I think they've been in a studio before, but they've never tracked with a band. I mean, they've never tracked like having to overdub to something.
Right.
They've just played live.
So anyway,
they have a CD. It's on their website. You can.
They're very sweet, and Nate had kind of composed the part, but we didn't quite realize that bagpipes they're kind of like harmonicas in the sense that they can only play in like whatever key they're in. Like all the notes don't work.
So they only play in a scale called B flat mixolydian, right? So
B flat what?
B flat mixolydian. That's one. You got one scale if you're playing bagpipes, and our song was in B minor, so we had to pitch shift it, and I had to I chose. They were able to play with pitch shifting about 85% of the melody that we had for them. So we kind of had to be like, okay, well, play this I'd show them the melody, but skipping some notes, and it was a thing. It was
so B flat mixolydian. I feel like you're making that up.
Mixolydian.
Right now it's that's your bagpipe scale right there.
Wow. Okay. So what is that song called?
Persona non grata.
And are you happy with the way it came out with the bagpipes and the way?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Right. You talked about some of the other firsts having a slap bass, and you got Flea in to play on that, right? On a couple of songs.
We played on half the record.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And how, obviously you worked with him. Did you just ask? I mean, how did it come about?
Well, yeah. So I was touring with them for a few years, and then we really hit it off. We love a lot of the same music. We love jazz. We both play trumpet. And when I had mentioned that we were starting to work on the record, because the first year of us working on this was just us getting together for these writing sessions where we'd be bringing in ideas and we'd be kind of composing the stuff together. And so I'd mentioned that we were doing that, and it just, the conversation just developed organically. And he's an incredible musician. He brought so much to it. I mean, obviously there's the slap bass on One and Done, but like listen to Dance and Sing. It's like beautiful melodic playing.
He's incredible. He's like so musical and so like just all just wants to like serve this song. I was like amazed, like, because we also got John Theodore, who plays with Queens of the Stone Age now, but used to be in Mars Volta and One Day as a Lion with Zach from Rage, and he's a drummer. He played on the whole record, and he's like kind of a hard rock drummer. So on paper, like Flea and John Theodore on a Bright Eyes record kind of doesn't, make the most sense.
Yeah, it sounds a little strange, but then you realize that they're amazing musicians.
Exactly. They can do anything, and I think it's way more interesting than us just kind of going with other people we've played with. They're going to kind of do the, the leave on helm thing and the like, the normal thing that you do to some of these songs. It's like they brought this whole other flavor, and they're both like so like, I don't know, just like open-hearted and just great to work with. No egos, just wanted to make the songs as good as they could. And yeah, I think it shows like everything they played was like totally added so much to the songs, I think.
Little known fact, actually, my partner, Becky, she has a ladies choir that she's had for a long time. It's called LA Ladies Choir. They made a record, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. Flea plays bass on it. So you think Bright Eyes might be a little weird. Check out, I mean, but it's perfect. You know, he plays, you know, it's just basically like 20 angelic ladies singing these songs that Becky wrote and accompanied by Flea's bass. So I knew that Flea can pretty much bring a huge amount of musicality and to pretty much anything. I think we were all really excited to see what he brought to it, and then when we got in the studio, it was amazing.
What was the biggest surprise out of working this way? Because clearly this is a different way of working for you guys, as you've just shared. The process of writing, obviously, bringing some other people in to perform and lay tracks down. At the end of the day, when you look at this collection of songs, what's the biggest surprise that you couldn't have expected when you went into it?
It's a good question.
I'm never surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe the biggest surprise was that it was so natural. I mean, it felt really natural. I mean, one thing I will say we talked about before we started recording was the idea of making this record that felt definitely like a Bright Eyes record and would fit into the catalog. So if it was sitting next to your other Bright Eyes records, it wouldn't stick out like, I mean, all of our records are different.
Sure.
And I feel like we bounced around a lot, but we wanted it to feel like a Bright Eyes record, and we wanted it to kind of contain a lot of like nostalgia of the old records and use different elements from past records, whether it was like the orchestration from Casadega and Lifted, or the sort of tricked out, effect stuff from like Digital Ash and People's Key, and obviously even like the older records where it was more just like the kind of punk folk blown out.
Right.
So we wanted all that to like exist, but we wanted it to exist in 2019 when we were making it. We didn't want it to feel like you had to like make believe we were like, it was the past. So I think it was trying to balance those two elements and find where they intersect. And I think we did it. I think more or less we did it.
I think one thing that kind of surprised me, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, Conor, which was, every time we kind of set up to make a record and we're in the studio for the first time laying down basic tracks, we kind of already know kind of what it's going to sound like. Like, you get the drummer that you're used to playing with, and the first day at Vox, I was truly like, I wonder what's going to happen. It was going to be a mystery. It's kind of exciting. And I've never experienced that with making a Bright Eyes record before, because most of the time, we invite our friends or people that we know and we've played with before. We toured with, whatever. We'd never toured with, Nate has toured with Flea and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but these guys have never played with us before. So that was not a surprise, because we knew they would be good, but that was something different, I guess.
We definitely didn't know it. We didn't know what they were going to do.
Yeah, and sure. That was kind of part of the kind of magic of that kind of like studio experience that was unique.
The songs that they played on were pretty heavy on the material that was written a little more collaboratively, where a lot of these demos were, on one hand, kind of open-ended, but on another hand, like had kind of they had some sort of mood. But, as far as like what the drums and bass specifically were going to be doing, really open-ended. And
because we didn't share
we only played them the demos until like 2 minutes before we went in to play it, and we really wanted them to bring a lot of themselves.
Right.
So I think that was, yeah, I think maybe
that was a surprise. That
was a surprise.
That counts as a surprise. That was
okay. That's because I wasn't sure at first. I was like, well, it kind of feels like a surprise. But we knew that they were there. They didn't just show up like, hey, wait, Flea just walked in. That would have been a surprise.
It's only a good question if you have an answer. So thankfully you guys nailed it. So let me ask one more question about the writing and recording of the album. Lyrically, Conor, you've always been observational and personal at the same time in your lyrics. Where do you find yourself? Well, where did you find yourself in 2018, 2019? Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean, I feel like I can only write from like the place in my life where I'm at. And, honestly, it sounds like a little bit of a scapegoat answer, but like, it's true. It's really not like premeditated. Like the stuff that comes out just kind of comes out from where I am. And so, I don't know. I would say that this record, since it was written over a kind of longer period of time, there's maybe different, I don't know, there's different emotions or different ideas going on. But I do feel like it holds together. I mean, I've been kind of asked to like what's the theme of the album or whatever. And, I think there's obviously like a lot of like loss, whether it's like personal loss, loss of life, loss of love, loss of identity, loss of truth, loss of reality. There's that. But then I think there's also like, if I'm trying to find a through line through all the songs and, make it a kind of thesis. I mean, I will say this, like, so we had all the songs recorded and we were talking about the sequence, and I knew I wanted, there's the opening track, which is like the trippy intro track. And then Dance and Sing starts, and the first line of Dance and Sing is, got to keep on going like it ain't the end. And I knew I wanted that to be the first song, the first words you heard, like the first real words. And then the last song is Comment Song. And it's, the last line is, you're approaching even as you disappear. And I knew I wanted that to be the last line on the record. And then in between, we could argue about it, but like, I had that very specifically in mind once we knew what songs we had.
It's interesting. I've sequenced records in the past myself, and I always felt that if you had the first one and the last one, then you'd figure out how everything else was going to
absolutely
fit in, because you make a statement at the end and you say something, so at the beginning and you say something at the end. So the album is called Down in the Weeds Where the World Once Was. It's out now. I would imagine you had very different plans for this year. Did the album actually come out when it was originally scheduled to come out?
It did.
Were you supposed to be touring right now? I mean, how can you promote a record apart from, sitting on a celebrity square thing? Yeah, like how can you promote a record right now?
I mean, it's really hard, Nick. It's hard. It's we've been doing a lot of interviews like this. We've been doing some. We haven't done a ton of the like sort of virtual playing stuff. We did a couple of things for Late Night where we recorded sort of separately at a studio. And then, we've done some, these sort of, I don't know what you call them, these little virtual kind of performances. But no, it's really difficult. I mean, it's, we're lucky, like we started working with this label Dead Oceans, and they're really great. They've been like working really hard to try to come up with like any way to get the word out. And but I mean, truth is there isn't much you can do. It's just like, it's like we were planning on being on tour for like a year and a half, so that kind of, it's been, that's, and then there's so many people have so many worse problems, so it's like I'm not going to complain about like canceled rock and roll shows, but it is like, it was something that we were very much looking forward to, and we had planned for so long, had the band together. We were supposed to play our first show in Tokyo in like mid-March, and that got canceled first. And then we kind of thought like, oh, maybe it's like just like gonna be an Asia situation. And then obviously
just a domino effect.
Absolutely. So then
So
everything.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so are you able to try and reschedule for 2021, or do other people have other commitments? Or, I mean, will we be able to see Bright Eyes tour this record hopefully in next year?
That's the plan. I mean, if things sort of, you know, go well, I guess, or I don't even know if well is the word you'd use, but if things don't go worse.
If people stop dying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the idea was like to, you know, potentially start doing shows like next summer, but
right.
It's really obviously, yeah, it's really up in the air, you know, it's obviously depends on a lot.
It's great to have 40 minutes of your time. Thank you. That's, you know, I'm a fan. I've been for a long time. And I hope I get to see you somewhere in person soon, maybe in our studio next year or something, and maybe in a live venue. Congratulations. And seriously, thanks for taking the time to talk about it.
I'm a fan of you too, Nick, and it's really nice to see your face
big
again.
Fans, you know.
Yeah. Good to see you all. Thanks, guys, so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, cheers.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye-bye.
Bye.